Hey, good day, everybody. My name is Ben Gabriel. Welcome to our collective webinar. With me is Marcus Dillon. Marcus, how is everything going down your way?
It's good, man. Trying to warm up a little bit, de-thaw, as most of this country can relate to, but it's going to be a good day.
All right. Well, glad to hear it and keep de-thawing. And if you're out there as well, everybody, and you're de-thawing or thawing? Um, Either way, get warmer.
Yeah, maybe needed somebody to fact check us or look us up on that. So,
I'm not, yeah, we'll have to run that back later. All right, everybody. So our topic today is leading your firm through change. So I'm going to do some just background logistical information as we to kick us off here, and then Marcus will just try to get into it as quickly as we can and talk about change. We're going to talk about some specific changes that the DBA firm has gone through. We'll talk about a framework for thinking about change at the firm. We'll talk about a specific example even, and then we'll look ahead to 2026. So I just kind of stole the agenda there. But before we get there, session's good for an hour of CP, everybody. I will drop a PDF of the slides into the chat window momentarily for a handout, so you'll have a copy of those. We'll do 4 polling questions. Please answer at least 3 of those, or 3 or 4, to qualify for CP. You do have to be in the session for 50 minutes, 50. If you have questions, please ask. Amy, Rachel, and Leslie are helping as they do in the background a little bit, keeping an eye on questions, so we'll do our best to get to those. And then when you close out of the webinar, we'll have a survey that you can give us some feedback on if you like. So, Marcus, does that make sense so far?
makes sense.
Okay, good. Glad you said that. So, learning objectives, everybody. We'll talk about the 3 phases of change, kind of that framework that we lead into here for what we'll call the 4 Ps, or the 4 Ps: purpose, picture, plan, and part. As you think about managing and implementing and working through change in your firm, and then as we go here, just talking about some strategies to help build resilience and trust in your firm. I think trust is that's a really great word, right? If we can trust each other, then there is a lot that we can accomplish. So those are our learning objectives here. Marcus, do you want to? I kind of foreshadowed it already, but do you want to just talk us through the agenda briefly?
Yeah, so through this agenda, I think the hour will go quick. We'll try to make the most of everybody's lunch time that they're spending with us. We'll just start with some of the changes that our firm went through and kind of talk through those, maybe give a little bit of background as well about how we're trying to improve being leaders that initiate change and how something like understanding the 4 Ps framework and understanding just the different phases of change help us become better leaders and help our team, our clients, our families live through change as best as possible. And then we'll wrap it up, Ben, with looking ahead to 2026 as well. Just making sure that based on those examples, based on those frameworks, that we're looking ahead and improving. So it's going to be a good conversation. I'm sure it will likely go quick with real world, granular examples that probably apply to everybody on this call.
Awesome. Okay, and Marcus, while you were talking us through the agenda there, I did drop a PDF of the slides into the chat, everybody, and I might do that again to catch anybody up that might be joining us here, but so you can pull those down and have exactly what we're going to go through here. So, Marcus, before we kind of look back at 2025 and set the stage, I'm just putting this one up on the screen, or just putting this up on the screen to maybe get everybody in that frame of mind that we're in right now. So this is not an official polling question, but for a few seconds, and probably if the longer you sit, the more you will remember, oh yeah, we did that and we implemented that and we changed that, and this is new. But what events have brought change to your firm in the last year? And things may overlap. You may not be able to categorize things necessarily. That really isn't the point. But as you think about your teams, has anything changed there? Do you have new team members at the firm? People in new roles, maybe different roles? Have anything has anything changed with your clients? Do you have new clients? Are you working differently with your clients? Are you doing anything differently for them? And then certainly technology, which all of these things are related to each other. Do you have any new technologies in place at the firm? Are you using any of those technologies differently? So, what events have brought change to your firm in the last year? Marcus, we're going to talk about some of these momentarily for DBA.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think most people on this webinar can relate just to these three. It's highly likely that there's change in one of those circles, maybe all of those circles. Even if you have the same exact team, even if you have the same exact clients, people change. So people within those buckets continue to change and evolve. But then even like that technology bucket, which we gravitate to, we get excited about. Even if you haven't changed the core technologies in your firm, likely something in those technologies has changed or improved or evolved. So change is constant. It's the one thing that we can count on. So our hope with this conversation today is that we'll just highlight some things to be better leaders and help others navigate change better than we have in the past.
Okay, so maybe you're making that list in your head. Maybe you're thinking of things right now. Maybe you've jotted an item or two down. But let's go into that first poll, and then this is an official poll. So let me do that first polling question, then we'll talk a little bit about 2025 as we start and look back at 2025, look back for DBA. So here's the first poll, and for those of you that do tax work, have you implemented any tax process changes for this season? Are you doing anything differently this year than maybe you did last year? And if you're willing to share with us, what you're changing or what you might be doing differently, we'd love to hear it. You can use the chat panel to do that. And certainly, we may have some folks out there, and I can tell already that don't do income tax work. Just you can answer, we don't do tax here. So, first polling question, Marcus.
Love it.
I'll leave
Everybody's
it up
running.
for.
Everybody's running to their screen in between different tasks that they're doing just to make sure
That's
they can
right.
see.
I totally get it. I just walked over to get another cup of coffee and I already got to do a first poll. Okay. All right. So
Knock it out.
I'm going to end the poll, everybody. There will be three more. Here are the results from the first poll. Marcus, you can see these, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
And it's no
So
surprise. I think we're an ambitious bunch, right? And everybody wants to improve. Sometimes change and improve are interchangeable, right? So I think that's the thing where hopefully those first bucket of answers are people that are looking to improve and evolve. Maybe the people that said no, we're sticking to our guns. We got it all figured out in the prior years. That's great as well. And then the other ones that are just open to change is good too as well.
well, maybe we'll share a few during a break. I've got a few folks sending in some
Yeah.
things that they're doing differently this season. So Marcus, we'll talk about some changes for 2025 that the DBA firm has gone through, but this is something that you stated as a rally cry a little bit of a while ago now, but can you talk a little bit about this rally cry for 2025?
Yeah, unfortunately, this was my rally cry for 2025, and it unintentionally became the rally cry for the businesses I get to help lead, which are DBA and Collective. So this applied to so many people, and that's where hopefully, whenever you do something like set your intention for the year or your rally cry, if you will, you realize how it may impact others. And so this was the rally cry for 2025 as we were leading organizations through a growth year, through a change year as well, because when growth occurs, change occurs naturally. So this was that rally cry. I would say it was ambitious. We survived that 2025 year, and we have a new rally cry for 2026, which some may have already heard, some will hear by the end of this conversation today. But the goal is growth, not comfort. And I've shared that with people for about a year and a half now. And that's where some people love it and get on board. Some people shake their head and say that's awful. So I'll let, everybody's opinions kind of stay to themselves, regardless. But we were committed to growth, individually, myself, as the leader of the organizations, the leadership teams within those organizations, and then the whole team adopted this year of growth for 2025. And with that, there was just a very full year, which we'll get into some of those examples of growth that we saw and celebrated in 2025, and then what that means for 2026 and beyond as we recover from what that growth year was, and then also lean into a season that comes after such a big growth year. But that was it. And I would just say, looking back on that year of growth, that year of change, um, I could have led better through that. And I know that there's a lot of people that understand where I'm coming from and can hear that maybe and apply it to their own situation, whether it's looking to grow your firm, looking to grow your team, looking to grow personally. There's just people that are on that journey with you regardless. And looking back over that year of 2025, when I think about the highlights and the challenges, some of those challenges where I didn't lead as effectively as possible. So toward the end of 2025, when this was still our rally cry, I dug into how we could lead change better, how I could improve as a leader and as just all the different roles that I hold in my life to help others that I care about navigate change better. So that's all obviously leading to conversations like this, given that research and given kind of the intersection of different things that I'm studying personally and professionally. And it's exciting because it applies to a lot of different people who are in very similar roles.
Yeah, Marcus, this is a mindset. The goal is growth, not comfort. Let's everybody understand that mindset, say it out loud. We figure out what it means as we go sometimes, but it's a mindset, and we all can follow that mindset. So, let's talk about then. So there was a rally cry. The goal is growth and not comfort. I've
Yeah.
got, some of them up here on the screen here, but these are some of DBA's changes for 2025. Marcus, you want to just, somewhat briefly, obviously, but kind of talk through each of these different changes that the firm has gone through?
Yeah. So coming into 2025, part of what we were seeing occur was we were gaining just efficiencies and effectiveness and client relationship and the team structure that so many people know about, that team of three, and just how our team is able to serve clients. They were able to build up efficiency and effectiveness. So with that, at the end of 2024, even throughout 2024, we were building excess capacity. And we knew that with that excess capacity, we would have to make some decisions as a leadership team. One of those would be growing through organic and organic ways, just a variety of different things to support the team we have and fill up that excess capacity. The other thing that you can do with excess capacity is make hard decisions around people. And, you see that in the news, Amazon laying off 16,000, all the fun stuff. It's just excess capacity. And in professional service firms like CPA firms, like accounting firms, your number one job as a leader is to manage capacity. And that's the name of the game, right? And that's when we talk about how much tax work do you do? What does your team look like? How much CAS are you doing? All of that is around capacity of the team, capacity of the workload that you want to be responsible for as an owner. So we saw that building, and instead of going the negative route, maybe having decisions on headcount and team members, we went the route of growth. And so we had a organic growth plan in place. We knew we could either throw dollars at that organic growth plan and continue to grow at that pace, maybe a little bit accelerated with those expanded dollars and budget, or we could go back into the market as an acquirer of a firm. And so that all happened prior to 2025. We started having our feelers out, started evaluating firms because we agreed as a leadership team that was a good option for DBA's growth path, and we're familiar with it. We've done a few acquisitions in the past. So in 2025, we went into the year knowing we were going to do an acquisition, and we did two. So we did one, closed January 31st, kind of officially uh, assimilated the team in February 1st, which there's quite a few things going on in Q1 in the life of an accounting firm. So, I would say that was a little bit of a bold initiative. But then right back toward continuing throughout 2025, we did our second acquisition at the end of September and did assimilation, started those uh, rolling in team members and clients October 1st. And so back in Q3, Q4, there's also some tax deadlines, end of quarter financial reporting. So we signed up for it. That rally cry, maybe unintentionally I referred back to it, that the goal is growth, not comfort, and made myself as uncomfortable as possible and everyone around me uncomfortable as possible. But that wasn't the goal. And so we did a couple of acquisitions, essentially doubled the size of the CPA firm, doubled the team, all that fun stuff, and really tested all the processes, all the different systems that we have within DBA. And so, with that, part of the growth plan, Ben, was we knew we had some gaps on the team, especially on the leadership front, at the director level team members, that we knew going forward we wanted on DBA's team. The first one of those was our director of technology, Angel Sabino. Angel's a longtime friend and colleague, and we knew that when the opportunity became available for him to join the team, we knew we had to go have budget to have Angel have a place on this team. And so that was part of the goal of that growth. Later in the year, we identified that it really made sense to bring back the role of a director of tax. And so Aaron Noix, our director of tax and financial planning, that's the second director level role that we had to make room for as far as budget. So we had to have some top line growth to account for those additional team members that obviously we wanted to do life with in 2025 and beyond. So the third director level was Leslie Reeves, who's on this call in the background. She was also elevated from a client CFO position to the director of accounting and advisory. So really great elevations and new team members that were being brought on in 2025. So with those really three additional director level team members, we needed budget to pay people the salaries that they deserve and have room for growth on this team moving forward. So those are two kind of growth related ones. We were also refining different policies and procedures so we could scale, we could grow as intentionally as possible. One of those was PTO for part-time team members. So that was something that we wanted to wrap our head around. We love part-time team members at DBA. So we needed to figure out a way to kind of provide for them just like we would a full-time team member. So we evaluated some different things, rolled that out in 2025. So that's great. New cell phone policy, that may just seem like just a blip on the radar, but it is pretty emotional when you talk about the device that people are connected to 99% of their day in their hand, checking it constantly, and what it means to be protected in the world that we now live in. And so Angel Sabino coming on as our director of technology, one of his first goals for DBA was just to identify gaps and where we could have some issues. And one of those was our personal cell phone policies because of all the interweave data that exists on the not only our laptops but our personal cell phones. So we had to address that, and because it is a touchy subject with something that people love so dearly these days, we had to approach it in a way where it made sense. So, new cell phone policy from a granular or just production level, we added in a couple of these as well. And these are just a couple of the updates that we did in 2025 is the 1099 review process in Double, which was formerly known as Keeper. We like Double as a add-on to our CAS work, and 1099 review process helps things consistently be reviewed throughout the year by our CSMs, and then makes this time of year, January, whenever we were typically in a scramble to get W-9s and review 1099s and make sure that they were filed before the end of the month, makes this month a lot easier to live through. And then that last one, our new management reports in Double. So that's another one where we evaluated different things, tried some different softwares, ultimately landed on going deeper into a software we were already using on a daily basis in Double, and just started embracing the reports that were there as opposed to whether they come out of QBO or some other software like Fathom or Insert option that's now available in the market. But those are about six things that were easily identified as changes. We welcome new team members, we welcome new clients, we exited clients. So there's a variety of different changes we're not even touching on. But I'm sure
Yeah.
as other people even think about the changes that they had in their firm, some of this stuff would probably resonate pretty quickly.
Yeah, I bet some folks may see some things on this list that they've managed in the past, or ring a bell with them, or maybe they've gone down the path. When folks shared some of the tax season changes, there were some new softwares that people are implementing this year for tax season. So some changes people have shared with us there through the chat. So we look back at 2025, Marcus, and we're going to come back to this when we talk through a framework. We'll actually talk about the new management reports in a little bit more detail for people, but. We've looked back at 2025, kind of started with a rally cry, or that was an overarching theme right there. The goal is growth, not comfort. And then here were six changes, obviously, two firm acquisitions and, team members in new roles and a variety of other important things too. So let's talk a little bit about now as we kind of move forward into thinking about, managing change and thinking about it. What do we mean by a change agent here?
Yeah, agents are all the rage right now, right? And you hear about agents being added into software, agents being developed. Even Angel is developing agents within our bubble, so to speak, and doing different things that are cool and existing in the background. But when I think about agents, I think how can we develop a team of change agents to walk clients, family members through life's challenges, life's just evolution. We already mentioned that change is constant. So when I started thinking about change agents and embracing this, not only as myself, but wanting to be surrounded by change agents, I thought back to like just the different inflection points in my career when I've had people around me helping me walk through change. And it was, my mentor Tom, who was helping me walk alongside. He was walking alongside me when I was acquiring what is now DBA and just going throughout the different seasons of life. Obviously, it's you can reflect on the change, but then you think about the people that were around you, and that's how you connect to those experiences. So, whenever we think about change agents, it's people that can anticipate, influence, but then also guide. And so there's a lot of this language in a variety of different rooms. You think about Donald Miller and building a story brand and how he teaches on that you're the guide, not the hero. And I think as professional service providers, we think about that and resonate to that a lot. So this change agent language isn't new, but maybe we've never applied it to our personal situation or our business in ways that we thought. But if you think back to the clients that you've assisted, maybe in the last year, I know that I've got handfuls of stories, not only on the client front, but on the team member front, people just, moving throughout a career path, whether it's in your firm or exiting your firm because there's not that next position for them within your organization. Either way, I want to be remembered for the people that assisted, guided, cared for, and loved people through change. When they look back and say, "Man, I lived through that. I'm stronger because of it, and it's because of these people that were there to guide me and help me through it."
Yeah, thinking about yourself as a guide, guiding others forward and through their changes. So, um, there's a difference between poorly managed change and skillful change, Marcus.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the main thing is whenever we realize, change isn't mechanical. A lot of times as CPAs, we get in that engineering mindset. So you don't want to be an engineer. You don't want to be an actuary. Let those guys be mechanical, right? CPAs, we're wired a little bit differently, or accountants or advisors. Just realize change isn't mechanical, it's relational. And so when we lead poorly, we create resistance, right? And resistance to change, if we're not able to properly set out why change is necessary, that it's coming regardless if it's necessary or not, we create resistance within our teams, within our families, within ourselves. And so, but when we lead well, when we're able to actually provide a picture and walk people through change, we create resilience and we create trust. And those are just the common threads that I personally want weave through my life, resilience and trust, resilience to get through a year like 2025 and all the change that was pushed through and initiated. And you have to think about, Ben, like how this impacts the people around us. And if we look at just our firms, the teams that are around us, and when we do a poor job as leaders to discuss and initiate and lead people through change, you're creating future resistance to change, and you're building up maybe calluses on people to where they're not going to be as open to change. And we all have those stories, right? Like we try a new software and we don't spend the time to implement it well, or we don't use every feature that we were sold on. And your team kind of gives up. And then a couple of years from today or the next year, you're going to go do the same thing with the new piece of software, whatever that new shiny thing is. And your team, they built up those calluses. They're now saying, is it worth it, right? Am I really going to buy into this? Am I really going to follow this leader who may be addicted to change? And it's one of those things where I've definitely been, you know, um, I guess curious about change and what that means within different aspects of life. And I would say, as I mature, as I get older, it's not so much about the change; it's about how successful the leadership of that change can be. And that's where I want to focus at this point in my career.
So I'm with you so far, Marcus. I want to lead change better. I want it to be, let's say, smoother and more successful. What we have here is, you know, a little bit of what I would say really foundational, which is okay, I want to lead change better. I want to be a better leader. I want to be a better change agent. We're all going to go through these changes. Maybe personally, maybe as a firm, professionally. The three phases of change here give us some words and some understanding where we can say, okay, there are some phases of change here or some transitions of change that we might go through. And I think this can be really helpful
Yeah.
as a leader saying, okay, these are some known quantities here. So talk about endings, then the neutral zone, and then the new beginning, which I can read as,
Yeah.
okay, that's the new thing that we're on to next as a firm or me personally. But there are three phases of change.
Yeah. Because change is so common and talked about, the great thing is there's a lot of research on it. There's a lot of people that teach on it. And William and Susan Bridges are just one of those people that have written books, and their model has been tested, over decades. And so I was introduced to this model and kind of dug in. So this is one of those, just as my learnings to improve as a leader, the concept of transitions. So transitions are important and they're different than change. So when you think about change, change is external. Change is all the different things that may be occurring outside of you, outside of like your team's control and your team individually as a person. Transitions are the internal that happens as a result of change. And so it's one of those to keep in mind what's external, what's outside of you as a person, and internally, how are you adapting to that? And so people experience endings, uncertainty, and new beginnings. So that's the way to think about these three steps, if you will, the endings, the uncertainty, and the new beginnings. And I would say leading change, you're guiding people through these transitions. And so initially, there's always going to be an ending because with change, you're likely ending something else. And so it's just those main points of loss, uncertainty, denial, confusion, frustration. Those are the feelings that you have to maybe empathize with whoever is also as a part of your team. So when I was leading the change throughout 2025, if I would have been a very healthy leader, I would have understood that my team is having to deal with some endings, or even acquired team members are having to deal with some endings, how they used to do business, how they used to just the granular things of log in and the software they used. And I would have been a much better leader if I knew that that was a necessary ending and knew what they were going through and thought about that before rushing through the next two levels. So we always start with endings and thinking about what that means and what the people are going through. That second piece, the neutral zone, is uncertainty. Neutral zone makes it sound a little bit better than it is, but it's still uneasy. And you can see right there with anxiety, resistance, disorientation, creativity is a good thing that could be coming, and then innovation. So I would say you start to see some light at the end of the tunnel with that uncertainty, with that neutral zone. So as I was doing my research and studying on how to be a better leader and leading through change, Ben, what I kind of came through is you want to lead people well through both endings and neutral zones, but you want to do it swiftly. And you want to do that in a caring and loving way so that you can get to the new beginnings, because new beginnings, that's where we want to live, right? That's relief, energy, commitment, exploration, acceptance. And those are much better words than the other two previous phases. So when you think about change, you can apply this to any change that you're going through. We'll apply it, here in a bit to even something granular like management reports and how we're able to just give people peace of mind on, hey, we're ending the way that we used to do it. Why are we doing that? All the questions that would come up, anxiety around, are clients even going to, like this, or are they just going to push back? What's that look like? All the way through, hey, new beginnings. This is, a relief that now we're all in one system. We're more efficient and effective, all that fun stuff. So you can apply this to things as big as team members maybe needing to exit the business, clients needing to exit the business, new clients coming in, all the way through, hey, we're going to implement this new 1099 process. And what does that look like? So I think it's really helpful to start with this. Movement through those first two is key. And that's just where I would say, if we're remembering anything about the Bridges transitional model, is that one, change is external and transitions are internal. That's the stuff that you can't physically touch, the transitions, and that movement through endings in neutral zone, moving through that swiftly is going to be your best option.
Yeah, here's oh, I'll come back to the poll in a second here, Marcus. But here's the book that we're referencing here,
Right.
the transitions book by William Bridges with Susan Bridges here. So it isn't the changes that do you in, it's the transitions. So like you said, the change is external. That's that thing that's going to happen or is happening. And then underneath the surface there are those phases. Something else needs to end before we can move on to doing the new thing. But before we're actually doing the new thing, there is this middle step where we're figuring it out, maybe or figuring out how we're going to do it. And that may lead to some creativity, like you said. It may lead to some anxiety and some uncertainty as we're in that middle phase there. So endings, neutral zone, and new beginnings. So let me get that second poll up here before I talk any more about it. So we talked about just were you doing anything differently here for this season that's kicking off here with tax season. So do you have other changes planned for 2026? Again, if you're willing to share, we'd love to hear just, other future changes or maybe, we asked specifically about tax season, right? Or season process changes. Do you have anything else planned as of right now for 2026? And if you're willing to share, go ahead and do that. So I'll leave this second poll up for another 10 seconds if you haven't voted. Dive across that keyboard. All right, Marcus, I'm going to close the poll up. Everybody going to close the poll up. So looks like majority of the group have some changes planned for the rest of the year. About the remaining quarter of the group, no changes planned, or maybe not sure yet here. So okay.
Awesome. Well, and the great thing about what we built at DBA and then the firms that are represented in Collective, most everybody has opted into doing business with a team and doing business with other humans alongside that journey and serving clients. So it is a difference in the firms that have a team approach versus maybe a solopreneur or anybody that's just a consultant and trying to create themselves a job or employment. And so that's how we think about things, and that's how we really study, not only from DBA, but also what we share within Collective is what does it mean to do this with a team? And over the last few years, right? Like for the people that said, no, I'm not planning any change, like you'll still have some changes, right? And so, regardless if you plan them or not, you will still incur change, regardless if you want to. And that's you as a leader, being open to change. Your team most likely will always incur change, just because of everything that they're in the position versus driving. They're always going to be kind of coming alongside you and supporting or being a person that is responding to the change that you initiate. And so, with that, thinking about a team, we always wanted to answer three questions before even this four Ps, was introduced to us. We always wanted to have three questions answered anytime we initiated change. And those three questions were, what is changing? What is staying the same? And how does this impact me? And we knew that those three questions were going to be on the minds of everybody, regardless of what you roll out. Like, hey, here's a $25 cell phone allowance on every check. Okay, what's changing? I get 25 more dollars. Great. What's staying the same? Well, I didn't used to get $25. Now I'm getting $25. So that's great. How does this impact me? Oh, because I'm getting this, probably more than likely, I'm going to be asked for something in response, like use of my cell phone to be able to log into programs and do dual factor authentication. So even in something as granular as a cell phone policy, right? You're answering these three questions because those are what's going through the mind of your team, most likely. And so, as we started to study about change and come off this year of the goal is growth, not comfort, and think about really leaning into being a change agent and helping others through change, we stumbled upon the four piece framework. This is also something that we definitely don't take credit for. This is something that has been developed by people much smarter than us, but it also helped us kind of connect the dots between those three questions that we were already asking all the way through what should we be doing? How should we be fully painting that picture of what change is, what it will look like, and how we can help navigate through it easier. So, as we think about leading people through change, Ben, the four P's are just purpose, picture, plan, and part. So you'll see some overlap in those three questions, which we've already talked about. It's the what is changing, what is staying the same, how does it impact me? Those are part of this four P's, but it just breaks it out and puts it in a little better of a view, to actually say, hey, like this is more concrete, this is more thought out. And even as a leadership team, everybody should be able to put in place each one of these aspects to really decide if change is necessary, if we're going to initiate the change that we're even thinking about. So that first one is purpose. Why are we changing? Whether it was those six different things that we've already talked about that DBA did in 2025, or if it's something new, why are we changing? That's going to align with your mission, vision, and values. So before you start implementing change, hopefully you've done the hard work and you've got some core principles and some guiding lights for you and your business and any change you make. If it's an acquisition, why are we doing this? Does it align with our mission, vision, and values? And so that's something that's very important. And if that doesn't check the box, then it doesn't pass go. Like you shouldn't move on. If it doesn't align with your values and mission, then you should probably rethink that change altogether. So the second one is the picture, and this is where we as leaders probably need to do a much better job. And when I say we as leaders, I'm talking directly to myself. So, like, I need to do a much better job of painting a picture for my team, the people that are surrounding me, whether it's family, leadership team, whole business, people I'm just walking alongside, like, paint the picture of what this change will allow for. And then if you're able to do that in a successful way, you'll get buy-in and you'll get people that rally around that change and want to step up and lead change as well. So painting a picture is something that we probably all are guilty of not doing a great job on. And just hey, trust me, right? Trust me doesn't go very far, especially whenever you've changed so often and built up those calluses on people and they become resistant to change. The term trust me isn't going to go as far as it once did. So, and then plan. How do we get there? So you got to share the roadmap along the way. Hey, we're going to go to Disneyland, but are we going to go on the freeway? Are we going to take the scenic route? Are we going to go fast? Are we going to go slow? Those are all things that you have to be aware of. And you are leaders driving, the bus of your firm, of your business. And if you're driving that bus and not telling people along the way, I'm about to take a curve here, we're about to speed up, all you're doing is making people really sick on the bus with you. And, you don't want to clean all that up or exit people from the bus because you've done a bad job of communicating the destination and the plan of how to get to that destination. So, and then that final part is part, right? So the final P is part, which we've already kind of talked about, in that third question of those first three questions, like what does this look like for me? The same thing can be apply here. So an example of this, Ben, would be, some of the acquisitions that we did in 2025. Our existing DBA team members who already had a full plate of clients, they were apprehensive, like, what does an acquisition mean to me as a CSM who's already, serving clients pretty well? I don't have any additional capacity. So we had to answer that last P part and say, hey, your role in this is to continue serving your clients really well. The acquisition, those new team members, those new clients, they're not going to impact your day to day at all. The only thing that we would ask for you to be aware of and be open of is if a new team member, a new CSM is coming into DBA, can they shadow you? Can they have a relationship with you as they have questions and working through our policies and procedures, how you do your job? That's all that may be the only part that you play. So being able to answer every single one of these is pretty important, regardless the size of the change. And that's where I would say that question you asked, that second polling question is important because if you know you're going to initiate change, which most of us are prepared for, right? We've accepted the fact that there's going to be change in 2026, then you can do this exercise for those changes you're going to initiate. And so, my word of caution for the people that said, no, I'm not planning any changes in 2026, when those changes occur to you, are you going to be ready? And once you identify those changes that maybe are going to happen, regardless if you initiated them, I would refer back to this four-piece framework and have it pretty filled out pretty quick to be able to have conversations with your team on the changes that are coming.
Yeah, Marcus, a lot of this is, it's for the benefit of the leader, it's for the benefit of the team, it's for the benefit of all of us, and if I can think through some of these answers, these are the answers to the questions that the team members are probably either going to ask or are rolling around in their head at the same time, which is okay, like why are we doing this? And okay, like we may not necessarily know all the details, but when this is done, how are things going to be different? What does the end look like for, are we going to do it this way or are we going to do it that way? And then in between, okay, all right, we're doing it. How are we going to get there? Kind of obvious. And then how do I fit into this? What do you need me to do? So purpose, picture, plan, and part. It's a good framework to think through. We've got so let's do this. Just if for those of you right back at the beginning, here were the six things that Marcus talked through in terms of some changes at the firm. Couple of the last things we talked through were software related, around 1099 review and double, and then new management reports in double. So Marcus, just for a few minutes, if I'm doing my best to be like, okay, I am planning. We've got some folks chatted in, some are implementing or examples implementing a performance review process, moving 100% to the cloud, new practice management software, implementing more AI. Those are some of the examples people chatted in. So, planning on some of those changes, let's just use that framework and talk through implementing the new management reports in Double that the firm implemented last
Okay.
year.
Yeah. And this is just an example, Ben, when we were preparing for this, we wanted to choose something that was pretty granular. People can
Yeah.
people can connect pretty easy to software changes or just going deeper with software. So that's why we chose the management reports that we embraced out of Double. And Double isn't sponsoring this, by the way. Double's a friend of Collective, Chad over there and Ben. But yeah, like we use it, we continue to use it and look for ways that we can, bring others into it. So why did we decide to use Double? Like the purpose is when we look at software changes, it has to align with what we're already doing, mission, vision, value. And something like a software change may not seem as grand as like, hey, we're bringing on new team members or starting service lines. So you could just kind of write off that first question, but I would say it should still pass that test. The purpose in this was to give back time to team members, so to build up efficiency and effectiveness so that team members have one less program or one less login to kind of balance. They were already using Double in their day. So as opposed to going outside and getting another third-party software to then layer in, so that was part of it. It just made sense to go deeper with software that we were already using. And it just had multiple functions that it kind of aligned with where we were going. And we definitely want to be transparent on the team side, but also we're also here to provide value to the clients. And we knew that expanding the financial reporting beyond just the vanilla balance sheet, profit and loss, and cash flow statement out of QuickBooks that, as accountants, we can read. But if you're a client that's never been trained in accounting or never had a business class and you're just focused on something else, it's likely not the best picture of how their business is doing or how their cash flow is. So we were always looking at examples, and so landed on Double as that example just for those variety of reasons. We wanted to be a resource for our clients. We always want to provide insight on how their business is really doing. But then on the team side, definitely creating synergies and more efficiency in our team's day. So whenever we looked at picture being next, how would firm operations change with Double? Obviously, we're printing things out of one software versus another. So not a huge change there in communicating that. But also what team members are responsible for what? Because within our team of three, a CSM, they're, the accountants that are working in the programs on a weekly, biweekly basis, preparing those financials, getting them ready for the client controller to review and then deliver to the client. So also taking a look from the picture to see what roles are also going to be responsible for what. So I know that's partly that part question, but going into that knowing how would firm operations for each of those roles change? And we had to build that into the closeout process to make sure that CSMs were getting those financials all the way prepared through Double, which those CSMs are working in Double. Like that's where they're doing their work versus working in QBO. QBD if you've got it, Zero if you've got it. We don't have those two anymore. So it's one of those where QBO it would be the home for that. But because they're already working in Double doing their monthly closeout work there, just made sense to take that one extra step and apply it to. And then plan. What were the key steps necessary to implement the change? So we had to come up with a timeline, right? We had to make sure as a team when would be the best time to roll this out. And so that was some of what Leslie and I focused on in our roles as client CFOs and definitely her role as leading the accounting and advisory side of the business. So we needed to know like, hey, we want to implement this and kind of have it go out in Q4 and really be based on the Q3 financials. We felt that that was a good time of year to kind of introduce something new, have the team learn something new, and then be able to deliver these reports to clients right before the end of the year for the first time. So they were seeing their financial results visually appealing or different for the first time. And maybe it would generate really good conversations at year end. And we knew that Q4 was the better time to do that versus Q1. And so that drove some of the learning that had to be done, the training that had to be done throughout the year, especially during those summer months as we were preparing for this Q4 rollout of those double reports. And then part, we answered each one of those by role. We said, hey, what's your role in this as a CSM, a controller, a CFO? How are you going to be using these reports? How is this going to be part of your talking points to clients on a monthly or as an advisory conversation? So all of those were really helpful given our learning of the four Ps in 2025 as we rolled out something as granular as, new management reports out of a different software. And so that's just, high level. I'm sure Leslie would do a much better job of telling you the plan and the documents and everything that went into that than I could. But hopefully, Ben, I've at least shared a good overview of what that looked like.
Yeah, we picked a really important, really granular example using software more, a current system. So you can apply it to that example, Marcus, and certainly you can apply it to other examples. But, the key part here is a framework that as the leader, I can think through, hopefully in advance and answer some of those questions that team members may have, or maybe I have myself, and better prepare us as a firm for the change, whether it's a software change or whether it's something else. So we've got about 10 minutes, Marcus. We've got about 10 minutes, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and do our third polling question. Let me get this one going here. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. That's not the purpose on this one here. But as it hits you, everybody, which P maybe feels the most important to you. And again, I'm not saying there's a right answer or a wrong answer here. This is not a quiz. But is it purpose? Is it picture? Is it plan? Is it part? They're all obviously related to each other, just like the stages of, or the stages of change are, the transitions are. Which P is the most important to you? 10 more seconds. Poll question number three. Oh, four. There's one more. All right, I'm going to close the poll up. All right, we've got folks split across, so purpose and plan, kind of most popular right now, but also some votes for picture and part. So I think all four parts are important, Marcus, so okay. All
Yeah,
right.
definitely. And I love that question, Ben, because it came out, where picture and plan are both highly important. One thing that is missing in the four P's is the D for delegate. And why it's missing is because it shouldn't be done. So as a leader in your firm, definitely helping lead through change. I I love to delegate things, but given all the change that we're living through and that we're leading these days, I would say as the leader, you need to be present in those four P's and not delegate. So I would say there's a reason that D is missing in that.
Good point. Yeah, it's not four P's and the D there. So okay. All right. So this is, but before we kind of look ahead to 2026, Marcus, we talked about 2025, the rally cry that the firm had, that you had, some changes. We talked about the three phases of change, endings, neutral zone, new beginnings. We talked about the four P's framework, walk through the new management reports example. Before we, kind of look ahead to 2026 for a minute, um, focus change reduces fatigue, builds confidence, and creates impact. That kind of
Yeah.
leads into the rally cry for 2026. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot, man. So impact is pretty important and pretty special to us. We've, adopted impact in a variety of different ways at DBA and Collective. It spells out, our core values, for example. But what I would say is change can lead to chaos. And so whenever you think about change, if you're not doing it well, it can get chaotic. It can lead to chaos. It can just lend itself to so many different aspects of life and really disrupt what you're trying to achieve. And the antidote to chaos is focus. And so as we enter 2026, I haven't taken any meds or got any prescriptions, but my goal is to be more focused when it comes to leading through change. And so if you're looking at multiple changes, you really need to evaluate and prioritize which of those changes, which of those different things that you're committed to are going to make the biggest impact. And you do have to limit yourself because you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything you want. And that's where, as you go throughout leadership of your business, your life, your family, whatever it is, we've got to do a better job of prioritizing. And when I say we, I say me, right? And so that's the therapy session for today. I'll send you $100, Ben, for being here. I appreciate that. But it's one of those as we get into what we are intending to do, and as a leadership team on this side, we look at a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. And we've got goals, we've got milestones that can help us measure how we're moving along those goals and all the things that we want to achieve. And so for 2026, our leadership team, including me, including you, Ben, like we need to get really good at saying no to things that are a distraction. And that's where if you come into this focused change, reduces fatigue, builds confidence, and creates impact, there are things that we're starting out in 2026 knowing the answer is likely going to be no. If someone brings it up, if there's a new platform change, a new tax software change, that's an easy one. Like we're just going to say no because we're not doing that. So stuff like that, what are the low-hanging fruits that you as a leader or you as a leadership team can immediately say no to and just not even think about? So maybe it's creating a no board, and no doesn't always have to be forever. It can just be no for now. And that's where if you look at 2026 as a standalone year, what are the things that you're going to be focused on that will create the biggest impact? Those are the pieces that you need to look at. And we're already a month in, and January's been the longest month so far. And that's where you need to maybe spend some time, regroup. You've gone through maybe a few weeks this year, but really focus on prioritizing and seeing what aspects of 2026 you need to focus on, what things you need to say no to, and those hopefully should align with a 3 year, 3 to 5 year strategic plan. That's what we're doing over at DBA and Collective.
Focus, Marcus. So, okay, looking ahead to 2026, and you talked a little bit about saying no. We'll kind of leave people with that question before we get to our last poll, but here's the rally cry for 2026. It's
Yeah,
different.
it
Um,
is. And I shared this at Gather in Dallas. So if people are on this, they've already heard it, it's already been adopted. It is influencing the decisions we make at DBA and Collective on a daily basis. So lead change, we want to be a part of the change leadership. And that's where we asked the question earlier, change is going to occur regardless if you're saying yes, we'll initiate it or no, we'll just be a part of the change. We've made the commitment that we want to be part of the change and lead it. And so that's the first part. And then the second part is create impact. We want to walk alongside people who are leading businesses, who are leading firms, who are leading families, and just be remembered that we were there. We were there to help them initiate change, think about things in new ways, set up processes, set up procedures, think about things different. And, as that inflection point is reflected on later in life, they'll know that they survived that change and got through it and are better for it. But then also they'll maybe think about the people that were on that journey with them. And we would love to be a part of that story. And that's why we're here, right, Ben? That's why we're having this conversation. That's why Collective exists. And just count it a blessing to be able to do this daily with our friends and firm owners who are walking through a lot of change right now. And so the rally cry for 2026 that we've adopted, lead change, create impact. You can take it, you can make it your own. It's a lot safer than the goal is growth, not comfort, but it still comes with a pretty responsible mindset.
Lead change, great impact. So this is just kind of coming back a little bit to what you said a minute ago, Marcus, is just the idea, if to help us stay focused, to help me stay focused as a leader. Are there things that we should say no to? Is there a no board? What can we say no to? What should we say no to, I should say, to help us stay most focused on those biggest impact items in our firm? So we'll end there with that. We got a poll here in a second, everybody, but we'll end. We started, off, having people think about what changes, did you have in your firm in 2025 or a year ago? Team, clients, technology related changes. We're ending here of we want you to stay focused. Are there things that we should, say no to in 2026 to help us keep that focus? And with that, Marcus, I'm coming in under the wire here, but I'm gonna put that our last polling question up here. Poll question 4 everybody. Are there things you should consider saying no to in 2026? Not asking you to list them out for us right now, but can you think of one or two of those things right now potentially I should say no to? or probably, or maybe, or no.
A lot of distractions out there, Ben, that are trying to steal your focus away from what really matters.
Yes. Yeah. Having that plan, part of the four P's, Marcus, having that plan, even if, things may change, right? Haha. No pun intended there, but we have that plan. It helps us to stay focused when something might change. Okay, I'm going to end the poll up, everybody. We're right at our time here. Here are the results. So nobody falling into the none bucket, but by and large, there may be some things out there that folks might say, yep, there's some things that I can or should say no to in order to keep our focus here. So I'll stop that last poll. We appreciate everybody being with us. Marcus, any final thoughts here as we tie the loop up with everybody?
No, go make it a great year. Lead change, create impact.
All right. Well, Marcus, thank you. Hey, everybody that was out there, thanks for spending an hour with us. We really appreciate it. Our session is over. Enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy the rest of the week, and hopefully we'll see you again soon on another webinar here in 2026. But we're all set. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ben.
You got it.